this is Michelle with A Growing Plant Addiction, where I share my plant knowledge and experience with fellow plant enthusiasts. And I'll tell you about my successes, trials, and errors in the hope that it can help you on your plant journey. Let's get started.
So here we are going to be talking about pon. It's probably one of the most common questions I get when I'm at a plant swap or just chatting up with some friends about plants. Pon is an inert substrate. So what does that mean? It basically looks like a bunch of rocks. That's what this looks like. Instead of soil, we use these combination of rocks specifically for plant benefits. So pon is part of kind of what we call a semi-hydro setup. There's no soil whatsoever. It's just water, nutrients in the plant and our pon substrate. The fact that it's inert is like really, really beneficial. Inert just basically means that it doesn't break down. So there are no organic compounds in here. It is a reusable substrate, which is awesome. I think is one of the bigger benefits. And I'll kind of go into like pros and cons of it all, but it's the substrate that I mostly use, so I get tons and tons and tons of questions about it. So what is it? So it's basically a substrate that's made up of three main components. We have our zeolite rocks, which are over here, and we have our lava rocks, and we have our pumice stone. So these three components together are what make up pon. There's a couple of brands out there, actually one that's very, very well known, which is called Lechuza. Lechuza also adds in slow release fertilizers because, as you can see, there's like no nutrients going on here. In most semi-hydro situations, you're looking to do a liquid fertilizer, but Lechuza pon does have a version of their pon that does have like a slow release fertilizer, so you don't have to worry about adding fertilizer if you don't want to when you're watering your plants. The zeolite rocks are really they're kind of known to purify toxins, to remove toxins, trap them. So that is obviously beneficial to your plants. It helps to kind of offset root rot and things of that nature, organic toxins and things like that. It's like a filter, if you will. It also helps to balance pH, or I should say buffer pH. So it's not acidic, it's slightly alkaline. So it's going to help to neutralize the water that you use with your plants. Another great added benefit of zeolite. Lava rocks are porous rocks, which means that basically they've got lots of holes in them. And when they're exposed to water, they absorb them. And then what they do is release it slowly when your plant needs it over time. So it's like the perfect situation when you're not like submerging your roots in water and like letting them sit there and rot. It slowly releases over time. So it really helps to the plant to kind of uptake water when it needs it. And then we have pumice. So pumice is also a porous rock. It also helps to absorb water and release it when the plant needs it. Another added benefit of it, it adds like a layer of almost like air. So it's adding aeration into your mix. So it's not too heavy, too dense. You'll hear us often say in the plant community that most houseplants do well in like a chunky mix, especially some of like your succulents and things like that. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about like adding aeration to your substrate. So that's what pumice is often used as. I will say that I use strictly pon completely, like nothing else. Like that's all I use inside of my pots, at least 90% of my setup. But a lot of people use it in combination. So if you're a leca lover or soil traditionalist, I hear you. You can also use pon for the added benefits in your mixture of your substrate. So you don't have to use it exclusively and you can use it in combination. It kind of works like both ways. So what are some of the pros and cons? Let's start off with the cons. One huge one is the expense. Pon is expensive, at least compared to leca and soil. Again, I think that's kind of offset with the fact that you can reuse it. So if you have a plant and you forget about it and it dies on you, because plants will die in pon or anything if you don't water them or give them light, then you can always sanitize it. You can always like boil some water, get it onto the substrate, like sanitize it, and then let it dry and reuse it. So it's a reusable one. It doesn't break down over time, again, because it's an inert matter. So it really does, I think cost benefits kind of outweigh themselves when you consider the fact that it doesn't, like, you don't have to throw it away once you're done using it. Another con I would say is the mess. It's actually kind of dusty. So you can rinse it if you needed to. When you're working with this, I highly recommend, especially if you like you're mixing it or you're making a big batch or you're stirring around a big batch, wear a mask because you don't want to be inhaling these particles. But it's very dusty, and you get this like residual of dust like inside of the water, inside of your canisters as the water is kind of coming down. You can rinse it, but I will say that other than like it not looking pretty, it doesn't harm the plant. So this dust is not harming the plant in any way. It's not creating any damage whatsoever or creating root rot or anything like that. It's just the way that it's manufactured. And because they're rocks, they rubbing against each other, they release some sediment, and that's what that is. When you are rinsing this, I highly, highly recommend that you do not do this in your sink or your bathroom sink, like any internal sink. Do it outside with a hose. You don't want this sediment to kind of build up in your pipes and create a problem. So highly recommend that you do it. If you're going to rinse it, do it outside. Don't do it inside where you could harm your pipes at home. So let's start with some pros. So I went through and kind of explained a little bit about the components of pon and said, that there is some moisture retention properties, there's some pH buffering properties, trapping toxins. All of those are true. And kind of what it helps with really is your watering routine. If you're the type of person who does not know if you're watering too much or too little, huge benefits there. You can visibly see the water level in pon. So as long as you get rid of that murky, like dusty particles, you can really see the water level. So it really helps to be a visual, like it's a no-brainer when it comes to whether or not you need to rewater your plant. A lot of planters come with these little visible windows that will tell you as the water level rises where you want to stop and keep your water. So that's also very, very helpful. So let's talk a little bit about containers. So semi-hydro setups are pretty simple. They're basically a pot. I'll take this one as an example. A pot and a catch pot, or you can use just a little clear container with some pon in it, or it doesn't have to be clear, it could just be a little jar. And I had shown you earlier this particular one. This is my favorite setup. These are found on Amazon, and I'm sure that there's some other online retailers that carry them as well. They're the little pots that have holes on the bottom, and then they have this catch that catches the water, and then you can see in the little display window when the water levels rise. This is my favorite because it actually holds the container. If you look at the insert, it actually is a lot higher than or it's not as deep as the catch pot. So it allows for water to build up like underneath. So as it's drawing up, it's not sitting in the water. That's important because even if you have a pond setup, you don't want the water to be sitting like inside of the roots the entire time. You want it to be able to have the rocks draw up that water from the reservoir and then feed the plant. So now if the plant develops roots like into the water, which it will over time, those are fine. I mean, you just can continue to keep that level. You just have to kind of mark it where you set up, where you do your setup, and just continue to keep that regimen of keeping the water at that level. I really like these containers that I got from IKEA. They look just like normal on the inside, but on the outside, but on the inside, they have like a little lip, and it helps me to put this container and sit it up. You can see that the level, that this is not as deep as the catch pot, helps me to keep that at that level so that it doesn't drop all the way down and keeps that reservoir going. So I kind of like that setup too. Let's now kind of switch over to types of plants that work with pon. So I've tried all sorts of different types, and I know that there's others that people have tried and been successful with pon, but I'll just mention the ones that I know that I've had personal success with and people that I personally know have worked with them. So I put pon exclusively on all of my Hoya. I also use it for all of my alocasia. I have many of my philodendrons in pon. Usually my reason for not switching to pon is if I recently purchased it and I'm still getting it acclimated. I don't like to switch over anything, until the plant is fully acclimated to my environment, or if I'm like between seasons, or growing a leaf of some sort, something to that effect. When the plant is going through like using a lot of energy, I'll usually like hold off for a transfer in substrate. But I tell you, I don't know of very many that don't work. I do shy away from plants that have really, really, really small roots, like string of pearls or string of hearts. And really that's only because I have not yet tried putting them in pon. However, I do have friends who have successfully rooted at least string of hearts in pon and growing very, very well and very fast. I think because pon helps with the nutrient uptake and water uptake, the yield you'll find on these plants is pretty crazy. And the leaves are just bigger. The number of stems coming out of like my alocasia are very many from using pon. At least that's been my experience. My plants just seem to like go on steroids when they're on it. I probably wouldn't use it for like some succulents, or maybe like ZZ plants. I probably wouldn't use it since they have those bulbs that capture and hold the moisture. I don't know how that would do. I'd probably try it, but I haven't yet. So probably wouldn't do ZZ plants. I probably wouldn't do cactuses, although it should work for cactuses too. And I've heard that the lava rocks are actually great for succulents. So it's possible, because I know in a lot of landscaping, they use lava rocks for succulents to grow them outside. So at least as a cover, and they work really well. So it's possible that it'll work, but I haven't found a plant yet that I've tried that hasn't succeeded. Like calatheas, marantas, alocasia, as I mentioned, philodendron, monsteras. I have a huge Thai constellation here that uses it, and it doesn't bar you also from using moss poles. I have a moss pole set up in that pond, so you can use your moss poles. You can use like anything like you normally do with soil with pond. It's definitely, you just use it for the added benefits. As far as nutrients, so you have your choice. You can either use a slow release that you add, or you can buy the Lechuzapon, which offers some nutrients already, some slow release nutrients into the substrate. I tend to use these, and I'll show you which ones. So for my slow release, whenever I'm potting up, I'll use Osmocote. It's my favorite one to use. I just find using the granules super, super easy. I also use an inoculant, and this is just to help with the roots on transfer, so that it helps to de-stress them. It's supposed to help with the strength of the roots that are being developed. So I like using that. I also use Super Thrive whenever I'm transferring any plants, because that helps to reduce stress of the plants. And then I also use this Marfel fish fertilizer. It's my favorite one that I use. And I just use both the Super Thrive and my Marfel. I use it with just a medicine dropper. You can buy these on Amazon for a 3-pack for, I don't know, a couple dollars. And that works really well. One other element that I use a lot in these, especially in these containers that have the deeper catch for the water, because it's not like it won't. I have just trust issues, I think. One of the things that I worry about is the rocks being able to draw up the water, especially if no roots have developed between the water catch and the plant. So I buy these dollar store microfiber cloths. The reason why I use microfiber and not cotton is because cotton is organic and can break down. So I use microfiber to prevent rotting of the actual material. And I just cut these, I fold these up and then I cut them into strips. And then once I have a strip, I'll basically either make a knot and put one side down so that it comes down into the water, and then the other side stays up into the soil, or I'll do like a loop so that the two ends are hanging into the water, and then the loop is like barely like where the roots are going to be. So that's usually what I do, and then that helps to draw up the water no problem. You sometimes end up getting ugly looking pieces here, but this is just from the dust of the pond. This is not harming the plant at all, and it's not a sign that it's decomposing. It's just soaking up the water to draw it up into the soil, and it seems to be doing rather well. So that's kind of one of my tricks, I'll say, to using pond setups. As far as finding pond, I will tell you, I commonly go to Amazon, but 9 times out of 10, they're always out of stock. Even Lechuza Pond's website, they're almost always out of stock. I found a local plant store. It's called Twisted Roots by Savannah, and she's like the only one that carries it. And the good thing is that she actually has a supplier who can get them often. So if you happen to be in the Maryland area, in Central Maryland area, she's in a town called Bel Air, and it's a really, really cute shop. And she has, I believe, like 6-liter bags of pond on sale. So I highly recommend you can stop into her shop and find it. I'll drop a link down into the description too below if you're interested. And I know she ships everywhere because she ships a lot of plants everywhere. She's got a very, very common Facebook group called Twisted Roots. I think it's Common and Rare Plants is the full name of it. But that's another resource that you can use. You could create your own pond. You could buy the individual elements and put them together. It's just really costly. It's more costly than the actual Lechuza pond. So in my opinion, unless you're buying like a massive amount, it's really not worth it. But it's an option if you're completely out and you have nowhere else to turn. Again, check out Twisted Roots. They usually have some in inventory, but if not, maybe Amazon or Lechuza themselves. But those are some places where you can try to find it. I had previously mentioned too that it does help with like fungus gnats. I will say they're not completely prone to pests. They will likely catch spider mites or thrips or mealybugs if you don't do like your regular care maintenance. You do need to keep up with that. But the fungus gnats are one that I have basically done almost nothing to try to prevent them, and the pond has really just kept them at bay. So this is my setup. If you have any questions for me, I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. If you have any questions for me, if you want to know more, if you want to see more videos about my pest control, about the nutrients, about a setup, I can even record a setup for you guys. Let me know in the comments. Also, if you're just watching and like you're curious to know more about pond, just let me know, drop a note down in comments. And that's it for me. If you have any other questions, let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye.